They say you never truly know your neighbors until something goes wrong. When my 8-year-old son came home from the hospital after a life-saving surgery, we thought peace and quiet would help him heal. But our HOA president, Karen, had other plans. She complained about the ugly medical equipment outside our home, even though it kept my child alive. Days later, alarms started blaring in the middle of the night. At first, I thought it was a malfunction until the doctor checked the system logs and found something had been tampered with. And when the truth came out, Karen's smug smile vanished as the police arrived at her door. I moved into the Oakview Lakes community because it promised tranquility, clean sidewalks, quiet lakes, and the kind of neighborhood where people waved when you drove by. The HOA brochure had photos of manicured lawns and kids on bikes. It seemed perfect, but perfection comes with rules and enforcers. Karen was both. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, the kind of woman who measured grass blades and counted trash cans left out for more than 10 minutes. Everyone called her Clipboard Karen. She took pride in catching the smallest violations: unapproved paint colors, mismatched garden stones, even mailboxes that weren't uniform enough. When my son, Ethan, was diagnosed with a rare congenital heart condition, our world collapsed. Months of hospital visits, surgeries, and waiting rooms followed. Finally, we brought him home, fragile, pale, connected to a portable oxygen concentrator and a small monitoring system the hospital required us to keep on him at all times. The devices made a low hum, nothing loud, nothing disruptive. But to Karen, they were an eyesore. She saw the equipment beside our porch, connected through a medical-grade extension to ensure backup power, and immediately fired off an HOA complaint. "Medical equipment must not be visible from the street," she wrote. "It lowers property aesthetics and violates HOA uniformity standards." I thought it was a misunderstanding. Surely once she knew what it was for, she'd understand. But when I tried explaining, she only smiled that cold, self-satisfied smile. "I sympathize," she said, "but rules are rules. Maybe you can keep that inside." Inside? Where oxygen equipment could overheat and malfunction? I filed an appeal to the HOA board. Weeks passed with no reply. And every morning I saw Karen walking past our home, snapping photos on her phone. Then came the fines. $200, then $400, then $1,000 for unauthorized exterior modification. We ignored them, focused on Ethan's recovery, and assumed reason would eventually prevail. We were wrong. Karen began escalating. She sent courtesy notices demanding we remove unapproved electrical devices. Then she posted on the community forum, shaming us for cluttering the neighborhood with hospital junk. Neighbors started whispering. Some defended us, others sided with her, saying, "Rules are rules." But the real nightmare began one humid night in July. Ethan's oxygen monitor blared a warning: power failure. I rushed to check the line. The backup battery wasn't kicking in. My wife screamed. Ethan's breathing slowed. We called the emergency number from the hospital kit. Thankfully, the doctor walked us through a manual reset while paramedics rushed over. Ethan was stable, but the doctor noticed something strange. "The cable connection looks tampered with," he said. We assumed maybe a raccoon or weather had caused it. The doctor replaced the line, logged the incident, and left. But 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, the hospital's data monitoring team traced irregular voltage drops between 1-3 a.m. The logs showed someone had physically unplugged the device multiple times. I checked our home's camera, and my heart sank. A figure wearing a hoodie but unmistakably Karen's posture, walking up to the side of our porch, crouching and fiddling with the extension cord. She had cut power to my son's medical devices twice. The next morning, I confronted her in front of the board president, who always deferred to her. She feigned ignorance, pretending to be offended that I'd accuse her of something so serious. "Maybe your system just isn't safe for outdoor use," she said. "You're lucky nothing worse happened." Her words, "lucky nothing worse happened," chilled me. It sounded less like concern and more like a threat. I brought the footage to the HOA board. They dismissed it, saying it's inconclusive. Karen smiled as I walked out. That night, I moved Ethan's equipment behind a locked cabinet and installed a hidden camera. 3 days later, at 2:47 a.m., the alarm blared again. But this time, I was ready. The hidden camera caught everything in crisp detail. Karen sneaking across our lawn, flashlight in hand, clipping the lock with a small bolt cutter, and yanking the power cord from the socket. She didn't see the blinking red LED of the security camera. The moment the alarm went off, I ran out, but she bolted. I called 911. When police arrived, I showed them both recordings and the damaged lock. Within hours, the doctor arrived to check on Ethan. He reviewed the device's power log and immediately called the police himself. "This isn't a prank," he said. "Tampering with life-supporting medical equipment is a federal offense." The officers went straight to Karen's house. I watched from my porch as they knocked, and she came to the door, wrapped in her robe, face pale. She tried to argue, claimed it was community maintenance, then broke down when they mentioned felony charges. The HOA board president tried to intervene, saying this was a civil matter. The officer cut him off. "Endangering a child's life isn't civil. It's criminal." They took Karen away in handcuffs. The community stood in stunned silence. For the first time, the woman who had terrorized everyone through fines and threats was powerless. After Karen's arrest, the HOA scrambled to distance themselves. They called an emergency meeting, suspended her indefinitely, and issued a public apology. But the damage was done, not just to our family, but to the illusion of safety the neighborhood once had. Word spread fast. Local news covered the story. The headline read, "HOA President Arrested for Tampering with Child's Medical Equipment." Neighbors who once avoided eye contact came by with casseroles, apology cards, and quiet shame. Some admitted they'd been too afraid to stand up to her before. Ethan recovered slowly. The hospital upgraded his system, and we installed a secure power backup. The HOA reimbursed every fine they'd ever issued us, not out of kindness, but out of fear of legal consequences. Karen was convicted of reckless endangerment and trespassing. She lost her position, her reputation, and eventually her house. Months later, when the HOA held elections, they voted for a new president, a retired nurse who promised to rewrite the bylaws to include compassion exemptions for medical equipment and family emergencies. As for me, I learned that sometimes it takes one act of cruelty to expose the rot beneath polite suburbia. Because the truth is, Karen didn't just break the rules. She proved that power without empathy is the most dangerous violation of all. And when I pass by her old house, now vacant and overgrown, I don't feel anger anymore, just relief. Because in Oakview Lakes, justice finally caught up, even if it came one night too late. What would you have done if someone messed with your child's life-saving equipment and the HOA tried to cover it up?